Both my wife and I always had a passion for missions.
In 2010, we just felt God sort of nudging us to consider overseas missions. We could use our backgrounds, our education, to make a difference in the lives of people.
We were getting all prepped to go, but unfortunately, a couple of months before we were supposed to leave, our plan suddenly came to an end.
All of a sudden, we were going to Southeast Asia, and the next minute, we weren't. So
It was hard. We questioned our faith, we questioned our calling.
we didn't go to church for about 6 months, 7 months. It was almost like a crisis of faith. Our lives revolved around the church.
And so our daughter Anika looks at us one day and she goes, "Mommy, Daddy, how come we don't go to church anymore? Do you not love Jesus anymore?" It was so clearly God was saying, okay, it's time for you guys to come back now. We had the opportunity to share some of the story with Pastor Jan.
And she said, you guys have been through so much. You need the Lord to just pour into your lives at this time.
He wanted us to learn certain things. He wanted us to learn patience. He wanted us to learn forgiveness.
He was just saying, wait, you need to grow, you need to mature, and you just need your faith to be really, really strong.
The conversation about missions, basically, it carried on throughout this time that we were serving at one church. About almost a year later, Pastor Dan contacted us and said, "Hey, guess what? We're planning another trip to the Dominican Republic." And obviously, we jumped at the chance. Unfortunately, Shammah couldn't come. But then we also thought it was really important for our daughter, Anika.
It was very exciting for us to see Anika go. For her to make it personal for herself was important.
And honestly, I was so impressed and so proud of her.
So once Yeshwin and Anika came back from their trip, we really knew that the Lord wanted us to pursue this a bit more.
So we actually approached the church. We spoke to Pastor Dan, and they suggested we get in touch with the POC. And basically the question they asked us was, do you have a sense as to where God is calling you?
We don't know. We were just waiting for the Lord to just show us clearly that where He wants us to go.
We said, well, originally we were supposed to go to Southeast Asia. And then one day, Pastor Dan called me up and he said, "Hey, by the way, we have a missionary who works in Southeast Asia. It might be cool for you guys to just meet with him and just see what life is like on the mission field."
So we didn't really think much of it. We just said, let's go and chat. We didn't have an agenda or any kind of a plan.
As we started sharing our story with him, there's this huge smile on his face. And he said, "My wife and I, we've been praying for God to raise up a missionary family to go to this particular area in Southeast Asia."
Yeshwin and I looked at each other and we said, that's exactly where the Lord's calling us, because that's where He was calling us before, and this is not coincidence.
After so many years, He's taking things full circle, back to the place that we were originally supposed to go so many years ago.
Okay, God's calling us to Southeast Asia. Let's get the ball rolling now. Where do we start? What do we do? And one of the big things standing in our way was a huge debt that we had.
The church actually had a financial management seminar. We worked with him and we came up with a plan to get rid of our debt within 4 years. I was working and Shammah she was driving a school bus and she just felt a little bit discouraged.
I was just crying and I said, "Lord, I know this is what you want for our lives, but how can we go through the next 4 years keeping this motivation and this call on our lives without getting discouraged?"
And she comes back home that evening. She gets a call from her mom who's in India.
My cousin had passed away the year before, and we were very close growing up until he fell really sick.
Even through his sickness, every year on Shammah's birthday, he would send a handwritten birthday card from India. He looked at her like his younger sister. And in his will, he's named Shammah as one of the beneficiaries. The Indian government was actually giving a grant to the parents to look after the invalid child. And when the money first started coming in over 30 years ago, he told his parents, "I want you to put aside some of this money for Shammah, and when I die, I want you to give it to her."
And we looked at the money and I said, "Yeshwin, I think there's something wrong with this. It just doesn't look right. We've never had this much money in our account."
overnight, just 80% of our debt was just wiped out. And when we look back now, we realize God was actually working on this for the last 30 plus years.
We were renting at that time. We just had no idea where the rent for the next month would come from.
That was actually the week that COVID hit in Toronto.
And Yeshwin was like, there is no way I can get a job at this time. And we were just praying, God, Yeshwin needs a job, and we know you'll provide something for him.
Shammah was down to a couple of days a week at her workplace.
I was sitting at the front desk answering phones, and one day I get a call from this lady, and she said, we have this house, and I need to move into an apartment.
And I feel God telling me to give this house to a missionary or missionary family that needs it for a few months before they go on the mission field, or someone who's coming back from the mission field. Do you know of anyone who might need a house like that?
And so I said, honestly, I don't know, but that's such a wonderful thing that you're doing.
And that evening she comes back and tells me this story. And I'm like, wait a minute, did you even think about us? And Shammah said, no, the thought didn't even cross my mind.
It's kind of weird getting a call from someone out of the blue offering their house. It doesn't happen.
I said, okay, maybe this is something that God is providing for us. Why don't we give the lady a call? So we spent actually over 2 hours talking to the lady, praying with her, sharing our testimony. She shared her testimony. And at the end of it, she asked us to pray with her. And then she said, I have complete peace about this. I believe this house is meant for you guys till you go as missionaries next year.
We prayed for a job for Yeshwin, but instead he's providing a house that will really bless us and our family during this time.
So we moved into the house actually June 1st. We paid up the last 20% of our debt, and we became completely debt-free.
God has called us to do different things. God has called us to go. God's called someone else to stay here, someone else to be a giver, someone else to be a prayer warrior, and everyone is part of the same team. We're just a regular family, like anybody else sitting in the pews.
As we prepare for our move overseas, there's so many emotions going on. We keep praying, and I say, God, am I ready for what you want me to do? Are we as a family ready?
All of these obstacles, all of these hoops that we had to go through, but looking back, we realized that if we hadn't have gone through them, there's no way our faith would be where it is today.
When we look at it and we go, we became debt-free. We got a brand new rent-free house, and I got a new job, all in the midst of a global pandemic. And talk about what an amazing God we serve.